back to Sloppy Saturdays, a college football podcast. And today we're coming at you guys with another episode. We're going over our spring QB battles. Now, I feel like there's been a lot of hype, a lot of QB battles going around the country, especially with some premier programs that people are talking about. Now, for a lot of these QB battles I have here, I have 6 here. This is from On3, the most anticipated QB battles. I have my 4 sure answer for. I have 4 sure answers for all 6 of them. I think almost all of them are pretty obvious, and people are making a little too much of the QB battles. Now, a lot of this stuff is smoke going into the season. We hear how tight the QB battles are, but it's usually who you think is going to be the QB is the answer. Don't overthink these QB battles. We're going to go into each and every one of them and talk about them. So the first off one, we have Syracuse's QB battle. This is the one that's actually really tight to me, and the one that I'm definitely leaning one way, but isn't the most sure answer. We're going Steve Angeli, and then we're going Ricky Collins. Steve Angeli, I think, is going to win out this job for sure. I think he's going to win out this job due to the fact that he transferred in a little late. I think if he wanted to transfer in, he could have probably transferred to a lower-end Power 4 program or somebody just outside the Power 4, maybe in the Mountain West or something, a program like that, where he could have definitely been the starter. The fact that he chose Syracuse to compete with Ricky Collins, and Ricky Collins is a guy, in my opinion, that has been a little all over the place at college football. We know he's been an LSU backup, but somebody that isn't as highly touted. When we look at Steve Angeli, he was the premier backup at Notre Dame last year. We actually saw him come in a couple of times as well for Riley Leonard due to injuries mid-game, and he did not look overwhelmed at all. He would have stayed at Notre Dame to take that backup premier job if he didn't think he was going to start at Syracuse. I think it's definitely going to be Steve Angeli over Ricky Collins. When you look at just their pedigree, how they came in as a prospect, the impact they had as backups at the school they went to, I think it's going to be Steve Angeli. But again, it wouldn't surprise me if it was Ricky Collins as well. It is going to be a close race, but I think from a guy that's ready to start right now in Steve Angeli, like people in that Notre Dame room, again, CJ Carr is going to be the guy, which we're going to get into a little bit in that episode, in this episode for Notre Dame. But people were very high on Steve Angeli to compete in a major program. We never got that from Ricky Collins. We never got the competition that he was going to put anybody on their toes at LSU. We never really seen him much in game time. And I think as prospects as well, like Steve Angeli just has the upper hand in every sense. And the fact that the late transfer really got to me, that he believes he could compete for this job. Syracuse, a program that was definitely on the up last year with Kyle McCord. He passed all over the place. They had weapons at receiver. We talked about this in a previous episode. They did lose a lot in this program, and I think they're trying to get a ready now starter who's going to be the most ready, the least overwhelmed, and I think that's going to be Steve Angeli to get them back on track. So that's who I have winning that QB battle for Syracuse. The next one we have up that I think is a no doubt answer. We're going to get into this a little in depth. We have Tennessee's QB battle. We have Joey Aguilar, we have Jake Merkenlinger, and we have George McIntyre. Now, I think this is 100% Joey Aguilar's job. And I think the only thing that's really stopping him from getting this job is that he's obviously a late transfer. Everybody knows the story with Nico Iumeulava, which absolutely nobody could have expected. Maybe people inside Tennessee, but definitely not people in the public like us. I mean, the reason why Tennessee might have expected it because we heard the noise with the Ohio State game that he didn't want to play in the Ohio State game unless he was going to get more money. Then he asks for more money in the spring, which kind of screws Tennessee over because now he's asking for more money in the spring. They let go of Nico Iumeulava. It's going to be hard to pivot because now you're in the spring. Your premier transfer portal already went by. Your premier recruiting already went by. You had these plans to start Nico Iumeulava. Very luckily for Tennessee, him and Joey Aguilar switched places. Joey Aguilar was going to be the starter for UCLA. He transferred from App State. But once Nico Iumeulava goes to UCLA, Joey Aguilar was like, I transferred out of App State to get a Power 4 starting job. So he comes over to Tennessee. They do a little swap. closest thing to a college football trade as we could possibly get. Now, I think a lot of people went out from this. When you look at UCLA's standpoint, again, there was kind of a black cloud over Nico Lava. Nobody wanted to deal with him based on what he did morally. But for a team like UCLA, who's been pretty much a dumpster fire over the last 2 years, when you talk about turnover with players, turnovers with coaches, to add in a prospect, a guy that you would have never, ever laid your hands on in Nico Lava if it wasn't for just the lack of people wanting him and the hometown ties. But not only that, you get him for way less than his asking price because he just got way too greedy. UCLA hit an absolute home run with this, and hopefully it strives them to get a little bit better and to compete a little more. I mean, this team really hasn't competed since the Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Zach Charbonnet days, which weren't that long ago, but it does feel a little long ago. But Tennessee, in my opinion, again, they didn't win out. Obviously, they get Joey Aguilar, who's a step below Nico Lava, but Joey Aguilar completely won out. He goes to Tennessee because Nico goes to UCLA, and he goes into a way better situation if he's able to win this job. And I think he 100% will, just because the people behind Joey Aguilar at Tennessee, this was not a part of their plan. They were never even supposed to be in the starting QB battle. It was supposed to be Nico Lava all the way. And I think to compete in the SEC, again, very similar to what I said about the last QB battle and what I'm going to be competing, you need somebody who's going to be ready for the SEC. And I think Joey Aguilar can be that. Again, we saw how he tore it up in App State. He really seemed like he could take it to the next level in the Power 4. He was the biggest winner in this scenario out of Nico Lava, UCLA, Tennessee, Joey Aguilar. Joey Aguilar was a complete winner. Joey Aguilar, in his wildest dreams, could have never imagined being the starting QB for Tennessee in the fall just a couple of months ago. But the way everything panned out, Tennessee needed Joey Aguilar. Joey Aguilar needed him. There was really only one option for both of them after what happened to Nico Lava, and he goes to Tennessee. I don't fault Tennessee at all. Again, I wouldn't pay Nico Lava even more than what he was worth based on his production last season. I get it. Nico Lavas don't drop out of the sky. 6'6", 5-star quarterbacks don't drop out of the sky. But again, he didn't produce based on his contract last year, and it was an agreement. You can't come back and ask for more based on an agreement, especially when you don't even outplay the NIL money that you were making to begin with. So going back, again, just went on a complete tangent, but I think Joey Aguilar is going to win this job. I think he's the most ready to start in the SEC out of the three quarterbacks in that room. Next up, we go Caden Salter versus Julian Lewis. I feel like this is another clear answer, and I feel like this is the perfect contingency plan for Colorado. When you look at Julian Lewis, yeah, obviously a superstar prospect. So Deion Sanders should be so grateful that he got him. That, again, Colorado still is that kind of buzz after Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. But they were able to get Caden Salter as well. Caden Salter did have a down year last year, but the year before that, we're talking about one of the best quarterbacks in college football. I know he played for Liberty, but he absolutely tore it up the season before last as a dual threat quarterback. And again, for this Colorado team, another team with a ton of turnover, a ton of holes, I don't think you're putting a guy in Julian Lewis in right away. And for a guy in Caden Salter, he has 1 year before he goes in the NFL. So this is the absolute perfect setup for Julian Lewis development. Again, another guy that's a dual threat quarterback in Julian Lewis. He gets to learn behind a professional college starter in Caden Salter, which, again, I think 1 year of Caden Salter, then transition to Julian Lewis is the perfect plan for Colorado. And again, with a team with a lot of holes, I think Caden Salter is going to be the most ready to start in a major program with these amount of holes. I think Julian Lewis will be a little overwhelmed. And we saw this time and time again with these freshman QBs. Dylan Raiola looked a little overwhelmed at points last year. DJ Lagway looked a little overwhelmed at points last year. You have Caden Salter, a college football veteran that had complete success in college football and possibly an NFL guy, could possibly be an NFL backup. I think you definitely start with him with the holes on your offense. And then eventually in the next year when he's ready, you go Julian Lewis and your program could possibly take off in the Big 12. Next up, we go CJ Carr and Kenny Minchey. Now, I think this is the easiest QB battle out of anybody on the slate. it's 100% going to CJ Carr. CJ Carr is a guy everybody around Notre Dame has been waiting for. I think he's more cerebral than Kenny Minchey. Kenny Minchey may be a little more athletic, but again, they need a cerebral mind in this offense. This is an offense that was in the national championship last year. I absolutely love Riley Leonard, what he did for them. And Marcus Freeman, one of the best coaches in college football. There wasn't really much more Marcus Freeman could have done. We're talking about a guy that went to the national championship, and his roster was just not as talented as that Ohio State roster. I would argue Marcus Freeman is a better coach. Again, now you can argue with the Ryan Day championship, but I would argue he's a better coach than him. And you look at Marcus Freeman, a guy that's completely rising in college football. He needs a guy that's going to be able to take over this offense, not be overwhelmed. And luckily for, even if it was Kenny Minchey, whoever wins this QB battle, I don't think they're going into that tough as of a situation in Notre Dame. When we look at Notre Dame these last couple of years, they have had a very, very sound identity. They love to run the ball, love to play defense, and they're going to have possibly the best player in the country, one of the best players in the country, in Jeremiah Love, the running back there. So he's going to be able to take a lot of the hold of this offense. Again, I think he's going to be the engine of this offense, and it's going to allow a guy like CJ Carr to really get his feet wet in college football. He's not going to be in too much pressure right away. The only thing about that is they do open up against Miami, which is going to be a very tough game to start. But again, for an independent team in Notre Dame, their schedule should be easy throughout the season. And with a star running back in Jeremiah Love, whoever wins this QB battle shouldn't be too overwhelmed. But I think it's 100% CJ Carr. I think what he's able to do, the throws he's able to make on the field is just a step ahead of Kenny Minchey. Kenny Minchey is a great athlete, but Notre Dame has been waiting for CJ Carr. Now going into our second to last QB battle, we're going Ty Simpson, Austin Mack, Keelan Russell. I think this is 100% Ty Simpson's job, and I think Alabama has no choice but to go with Ty Simpson for this job. Now, there's no doubt when you look at these three QBs, Keelan Russell is the guy for Alabama's future. He was an absolute super prospect. When you talk about what he's able to do at his size, athletically, the way he's able to throw the ball, all his physical traits, he definitely has the highest ceiling out of anybody in this room. But very similar, like we said, to Colorado, I think Alabama has a very good plan for this QB room. I think they're going to go 1 year with Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson, another guy, though, that's a 5-star QB prospect, and he's been sitting in Alabama for 3 years. Now, I think the major thing you have to keep on for this team is how disappointing this team was last year and how they need a guy that's going to be absolutely ready to take over this offense. When you look at this team, we heard rumors with Jalen Milroe, if he would have came back, almost all of Alabama's offense would have left. That speaks volumes to Jalen Milroe. And somehow people still think this guy's going to succeed in the NFL. But they need a guy in Ty Simpson that's going to be able to succeed in every type of throw, short, intermediate, and deep throws. Because when we look at a guy like Ryan Williams, an absolute superstar prospect, he got lost in that offense late in the year. I mean, you're talking about Ryan Williams, a generational 17-year-old, took over college football in the beginning stage of last year and got lost in that offense because there was no consistent amount of throws coming from Jalen Milroe. Now you bring in Ty Simpson, a guy that's a pocket passer that could get your whole offense involved, and Alabama really cannot afford another bad year under Kalen DeBoer. We're talking about a 12-team playoff that Alabama missed last year, and again, they completely missed an opportunity against Vanderbilt. I don't want to say any game is an easy game in the SEC, but that's a game you mark as a win before the season starts if you're an Alabama fan, and they let that one go. They missed the college football playoffs, and again, just completely inconsistent throughout the whole season. They need somebody that's going to make this offense absolutely a consistent offense from game to game, and with Jalen Milroe, you did not know what you were getting from game to game. Now, do I think Ty Simpson is going to be necessarily a better quarterback than Jalen Milroe? I don't know, just because of what Jalen Milroe was able to do with his legs was unlike any other player in college football. But this offense needs a floor. It needs a floor. They cannot disappoint 2 years in a row. They got everybody they needed back, especially on this offense. You look at Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, Jan Miller, the three best players on this offense came back. The defense came back as well, Justin Jefferson, LT Overton, and others. So they got everybody they need to back despite some turnover, and this offense needs a floor. You put in Ty Simpson now that brings a consistent passing game and Keelan Russell learns under him for 1 year. Ty Simpson, I don't believe is going to be able to hold him off for 2 years, even though he is a 5-star prospect. I think Keelan Russell is going to come in the year after. I think it's a perfect situation. An absolute 5-star learns for 1 year, and you have a quarterback that's going to give you a floor for Alabama. Then Keelan Russell comes in the next year and takes over because he cannot be sitting for 2 years. But Ty Simpson, I think, wins this QB battle. Then the last QB battle we get into Julian Sains and Lincoln Keenholz. Also, Tavion St. Clair is in this room as well. I said it on a previous episode. I am very nervous for Tavion St. Clair. I think Tavion St. Clair has the highest ceiling out of anybody in this QB room, but he's obviously a step behind in experience, and he can't compete for this job this year. And a guy like Julian Sain, who's also a 5-star prospect, if he wins this job, and the amount of weapons Ohio State has on their offense from year to year, I don't see a way he gives it up. And for Ohio State fans, for this Ohio State team, I don't see a way Tavion St. Clair gets in. It's going to be very tough to pull Julian Sain for Tavion St. Clair while things are rolling for Ohio State, not this year, but possibly next year. And again, this is a very, very big problem in college football. You have multiple 5-star QBs committed to the same blue chip type of programs, and they don't get an opportunity to start. So I don't know what's going to happen to Tavion St. Clair. And obviously, what I'm saying is with Julian Sain and Lincoln Keenholz, I think it's 100% Julian Sain's job. I mean, as much as they're saying this is a tight QB battle, everybody, when it comes players in Ohio State, they have been supporting Julian Sain. Julian Sain just has such a bigger pedigree than Lincoln Keenholz. And I think that's going to eventually win out. I mean, what they have invested in Julian Sain compared to Lincoln Keenholz, they could say it's close, but I think Julian Sain wins this job for sure. We're looking at a complete 5-star guy and a guy that's sat a year, so he has the edge over Tavion St. Clair, and he has a bigger pedigree than Lincoln Keenholz. And this is a guy, again, that we talk about, Emeka Egbuka, Thorson, Travion Henderson. It seems like everybody from that Ohio State core last year was completely fully on board with Julian Sain being the quarterback this year. Again, barring any surprises, that's the QB battles for this year. Don't overthink these QB battles. Again, who you think is going to be the QB, I believe will be the QB for these programs. That wraps up this episode of Sloppy Saturdays, and we are out.